I don't normally talk about live-action shows on this channel, but today for my 49th reviewer countdown, I'm going to discuss one of my favorite television shows of all time, Seinfeld. Created by Jerry Seinfeld in 1989, Seinfeld was one of the longest-running American sitcoms of all time. Throughout 180 episodes, the show explored the lives of George Costanza, Cosmo Kramer, Elaine Benz, and a fictionalized Jerry Seinfeld, who are a group of New Yorkers that live together in an apartment. It showed both the mild and exciting day-to-day occurrences of these four characters, and many of its episodes still hold up really well today. To celebrate the series, I'm going to count down my top 5 favorite episodes of Seinfeld. Just remember that with all the great episodes that this show has, my top 5 list is probably going to be very different than yours, and yada 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 onto the list. The Chinese Restaurant. In one of the most popular episodes of the series, Jerry, Elaine, and George go to a Chinese restaurant before a movie, but each of them run into problems while waiting for their table. Jerry sees a woman whose name he can't remember, George is unable to get to the phone to invite his girlfriend to join them, and Elaine is starving. The entire episode takes place in the waiting area of a restaurant, and it's a very relatable experience. I think that everyone has gotten frustrated while waiting for a table or waiting to get their food, so you really connect with the atmosphere that surrounds the trio. The episode also has a lot of comedy coming from the way the characters deal with their situations, as well as the side characters like the maitre d'. There isn't much of a plot to the episode. It's just a bunch of jokes that come from the awful situation that the characters are placed in. Many other Seinfeld episodes would use this formula later, but the Chinese restaurant was where the formula began, and for that it earns a spot on the list. As mentioned in the previous entry, Seinfeld had a lot of relatable episodes, and the one I relate to the most is the nap. This episode had 4 different plots that intertwined with one another. Jerry has a story about getting his kitchen renovated, which no one seems to like. That section of the episode is fine, but the real stars of the show are the other plots, which all strike a chord with me. I can't count the number of times my new mattress began to smell, or when my boss and his children thought a bomb was exploding in my desk. I can really relate to the situations these characters get into, as stuff like this happens to me every day. The Kramer plot in this episode is my favorite of the 4. He begins to work out by swimming in the New York East River, but is annoyed when his exercise catches on and others join him. Don't you just hate it when that happens? While I enjoyed some of its plots more than others, the nap is an underrated gem, with hilarious interpretations of situations I encounter every day. Now from here on out, this list gets very controversial. I know that many of you aren't going to agree that these are the best episodes of Seinfeld, but they are because my opinion is fact and I am always right. This next episode is a 5-minute mini-episode from the Seinfeld miniseries, The Adventures of Seinfeld and Superman. A miniseries so obscure that you've likely never heard of it before. The miniseries has Jerry finally hanging out with his idol as they go on wacky adventures together. It's quite the change of pace from the TV show, but it is still excellent. My choice for number 3 is the episode A Uniform Used to Mean Something. In it, Seinfeld and Superman have lunch before Jerry's surround sound DVD player is stolen by a street crook. What happens next is one of Seinfeld's best fight scenes, and that is saying something in a series known for its epic battles.
I'm gonna call him.
No, don't call him.
No, I'm calling him.
No, Jerry, don't call him.
No, forget it. I'm gonna call him. Get away from me. I'm gonna call him. No,
Jerry,
don't
give me the
fight me.
phone.
Don't fight me. You want to fight?
Jerry, I'm gonna kill you.
You want to?
But Superman accidentally breaks the DVD player while capturing the criminal, leading to the comedic highlight of the episode.
So what happened here?
A guy threw it at me, it bounced off, hit the ground.
Why didn't you just catch it?
I don't do that. I do this.
The oddest part of it comes next, where Jerry uses his American Express credit card to get a refund on his purchase. It's a very strange resolution for sure, but for some reason, I feel like I want to get an American Express credit card now. There's even more to this great episode that I won't dare spoil here, but the bottom line is that A Uniform Used to Mean Something is a perfect mix between action and comedy. It wasn't the crossover we wanted, but the crossover that we needed. I'm very sorry if I didn't do the best job summarizing the premise of Seinfeld when introducing it in this video, so let me redeem myself for my past sins. To quote the show itself, Seinfeld is a show about nothing.
I think I can sum up the show for you with one word. Nothing. 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 Nothing.
And the episode that really showcases this aspect of the show is the episode The Nothing. It transcends being just another episode of Seinfeld, and instead is a true work of art. If you are unfamiliar with this masterpiece, you may be wondering why I'm not showing anything on screen. That is because The Nothing is literally 22 straight minutes of a dark screen. There's no plot, no characters, and no dialogue. It's just nothing. This is one of the most intriguing and well-written episodes of television I've ever seen. However, there weren't many funny quotes in this episode that the internet could take and turn into obnoxious memes, which keeps this episode from achieving the top spot on this list. But besides that, The Nothing is a beautiful experience that really gets to the core of what Seinfeld is. You knew that the B-movie was going to have some sort of influence on this list, but you probably didn't expect the two-part episode, The Bees, to land the number 2 spot on this list. After another one of their ideas gets rejected by NBC, Jerry and George come up with the idea for a movie about the everyday lives of bees, where we figure out exactly what is the deal with bees. When they pitch their idea to Paramount Pictures, they accept the screenplay and production begins. Unfortunately, the duo decides to make the movie live action, which results in some epic fails during production.
Hey, wait a minute. Where's Steven? Where's Steven?
Okay.
Somebody help me!
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
This was an incredibly clever tie-in to one of the best animated movies of all time. It shows the origins of all the classic characters and moments from the film, including the line that will be remembered for centuries.
Why is yogurt night so difficult?
Meanwhile, after a traumatic attack by a bee, Kramer becomes a bee exterminator and tries to sabotage the filming of the movie. But on top of all the classic moments, The Bees is also a heartwarming story. This is Jerry's first major job in the industry, and if he screws it up, he may never get a shot at fame and fortune again. So the ending where Jerry makes a compromise with Paramount to turn the B-movie into a CGI animated picture had me in tears. It would have been the best ending of the series, if it weren't for the number 1 entry. But before we get to that, here's a quick recap, because I know that my viewers are too stupid to remember what happened in the past 7 minutes. Number 5, the Chinese restaurant. Number 4, the nap. Number 3, a uniform used to mean something, or as the true Seinfeld fans call it, the uniform used to mean something. And number 2, the bees. Without further ado, my favorite episode of Seinfeld is one I cannot enjoy without a purchase from my reliable credit card used by both superheroes and pirates everywhere, American Express. This video is not sponsored by American Express. I'd also like to take this time to thank Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David for creating Seinfeld, all of the great music remixers whose work was featured in this video, whoever designed those Seinfeld DVDs, my parents for giving birth to. When you really think about it, the 4 main characters of Seinfeld are jerks. They're constantly rude to others and only think for themselves, but the show was written so well with its great humor and relatable situations that you don't really notice this side of the characters. So it was an interesting idea for the writers to create an episode that explored this aspect of the show. And that episode was the finale. They did this by putting the protagonists on trial and had them be testified against in court by dozens of characters whose lives had been ruined by our favorite 4 New Yorkers. But a few key decisions were made in the episode that made it a lot different than it could have been. Half of the episode is setup, some of which is just unnecessary. Most of the episode is a formulaic clip show, with the appearances of the returning characters being extremely quick, and the writers completely missed the point of what the audience likes about the show. Yes, the main characters are jerks, but as I previously said, we relate to them, we laugh at them, and many of their poor actions towards others are just misunderstandings or actions driven by impulse. They don't really deserve to be thrown into jail at the end of the episode. It's both a disappointing end to the show and to the entire series. Yes, this is the series finale and the last that we see of these characters. With all of this in mind, you are probably very confused as to why this is my favorite episode of Seinfeld. Well, the answer is that an NBC commercial told me so.
The greatest Seinfeld ever. The final Seinfeld.
I think that I've argued my point very well. Now, I will end this video just like Seinfeld ends its episodes, by freezing on a funny still frame and cutting to credits.
Why is yogurt night